All right, we're continuing with the lymphatic system. If you remember yesterday, we got basically through the entire system. There's only a little bit more work we need to do in the lymphatic system. This diagram here is over on page 392. That gives you just a nice general overview. To review, the lymph system is carrying what? Lymph, right? Lymph is that interstitial fluid, that fluid between cells, right? And it's carrying that fluid where? Sorry? Throughout the body, sure. Where's the destination? Where is it trying to get it back to? To the heart eventually, to the veins, right? In particularly the subclavian veins up in the very top, right underneath your collarbones, is where they're trying to get into. The two big trunks, the thoracic trunk, and I think it's the right, I have to look it up again, dump into that subclavian vein, right? Or veins, plural. This picture is showing you where the lymph nodes are. Remember, those are like little bulges in the lymph vessels. And what's the point of those lymph nodes? Like, in one word, what do? Filter, right? There are tons of them. Oh, yeah. They're filtering, right? They're getting out some of the bad things. In particular, we're talking about the bacteria and this kind of stuff that are left in that interstitial fluid and then sending it on as it moves through the lymph system. Question? No. They're just, right now. In general. I don't know. I think they're fairly equal, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. And how does the lymph system move the lymph? Through contractions, right? Not of a heart, because there is no heart in the lymphatic system. It's simply through muscle movement, right? Through your breathing. You notice those lymph nodes are mostly located in what areas? Joints, right? Or in your trunk, where again there's lots of movement and squishing and moving, okay? So that movement, your global movement, is what moves that lymph through the system. There are two main organs that are I don't know whether are connected, sure, I can't think of the right word I want, with the lymphatic system, and that's the thymus and the spleen. And they function very much as like large lymph nodes. That's basically how they work. Let's talk about the thymus first. So the thymus is a soft bilobed means two-lobed organ that's behind the sternum, okay? And it actually shrinks over time. It's very large and the younger you are, larger the younger you are. In your age, it's probably half size. And by the time you get to my age, it's getting very small. And if you're my parents' age, not to call my parents elderly, sorry, Mom, you're much more, it's almost microscopic. Okay? And you'll see as we go. It talks a bit more about that. The thymus is, again, connective tissue that kind of divides it into different lobes or lobes. Okay, so here's that thymus, again, bilobular, or so two lobes, right underneath the sternum. And it contains the lymphocytes, which these mature into what we call T lymphocytes. If you've read ahead and done your questions already, you know in the immune system we're dealing with two kinds of lymphocytes, T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes. The T come from the thymus. That's why they're called T lymphocytes. Okay? And these then leave out of the thymus to provide that immunity. The thymus also secretes the hormone thymosin, which influences how these T lymphocytes mature. You know, they're very immature, like throwing parties and smoking weed and everything, and then they mature as they get, just make sure you're awake. Yeah, that helps them to actually be able to fight the invaders better. Yes, ma'am. So if you are sick, often your lymphocytes are needing to be produced more. So those lymph nodes will swell to produce more of these guys. So that is like, your doctor's feeling, oh yeah, your nodes are swollen. That's what they're meaning. That's often a sign that, hey, your body is really kicking it into gear trying to fight some sort of infection or some sort of a problem. I thought this did mention more about the thymus, why it grows smaller. It's really because the amount of immunity you need as a child is exponentially larger than what it is as an adult because you haven't been exposed. This, I think, is the number one reason why, and I'm talking to people who will be parents someday, you're getting a little taste of what it's like to be a parent getting up all the time with these lovely sacks of flour. That's life, okay? It's life, and you have to go function during the day, right? It was funny because I was just talking to a good friend of my wife and I's who's our age. They have a 2-year-old. Like they have a son who was here for Academy Day yesterday, and they have a 2-year-old. It's a huge difference, right? And she's like, I just can't believe how much more tired I am at 41, 42 having a baby than what I was, 15 years ago. Anyway, so this is why I think it's so important that you let your kids get dirty. Hear me. I want them to, yes. Now, I'm not saying go lick dirt. That's not what I'm saying, okay? But you know these parents who are super germophobic. Listen, guys, the kids actually are sicker. And I'm not kidding you. The research has shown this consistently. Because your child, you have to understand, that baby, up until about 2 years old, that is the most effective bacteria and virus weapon we have ever seen. Like, it can kill almost anything. Oh, yeah. It's so powerful, right? And again, the thymus plays a role because it's producing these T lymphocytes, right? But again, as you age, that ability to fight off these things decreases. I gave the great example the other day of chickenpox, right? Chickenpox, when you're a kid, is a nuisance disease. You get bumps, they itch. A week or so, you're normal, right? As an adult, chickenpox can kill you. Right? So now we get vaccines for it nowadays, but when I was a kid, if you had chickenpox and I had not had it yet, my parents would literally bring me to your house to have a play date. We didn't call it a play date, but we'd go play with each other. So I would get sick, which seems counterintuitive, but the point is, then I could fight off that disease. I could make the antibodies for chickenpox, and it wouldn't bother me again the rest of my life.
You get it once, would you not get it?
No, as long as you get it good. If you only get a little bit of it, sometimes you can actually get it a second time.
So they wanted you to go over there and get sick since you were younger.
Right, and I could take care of it. It would be a pain, but I wouldn't have to worry about it again because there was no vaccine at that point for it. So same virus, but it's a different manifestation of it. You're less likely to get shingles because, again, your body can already fight against that virus. But shingles, it manifests in a different way. So just because you've had it doesn't mean you can't get it. But it's usually not nearly as severe, not nearly as problematic. I'm 90% sure that's correct. Does that make sense, my friends? So again, I'm not advocating your children to go roll around in the mud puddles. In some ways I am, to be honest. Okay? But you be wise. But don't run after them with hand sanitizer all the time. That's why God gave us immune systems. The spleen is another one of these organs that's tied into the lymphatic system and really into immunity. It is on the left, the upper left of your abdominal cavity, kind of right in this area here. This is big, long, thin organ. And it looks very much like a large lymph node, except that it contains blood instead of lymph. So it has these same kind of lymphocytes that are present, but it's actually working them into the blood. Going back to that blood reservoir thing, the spleen is another humongous blood reservoir. That if you are not doing well, the spleen can almost push out all of the blood that's in it and get it out into your system so you still have blood to be flowing through your body. So inside, again, lots of lymphocytes. There's a white pulp, there's a red pulp that are dealing with the lymphocytes and the macrophages. Remember, macrophage is a big eating thing. That's literally what the word means, right? Macro means large, phage means to eat. So it's a large eater. It's eating up the wastes and the bacteria and these problems, okay? And again, filtering the blood. That's what the spleen is doing. Whereas the lymph nodes are filtering what? The lymph, right? The fluid. This is actually doing the same kind of thing to the blood. We cool? Oh, and here's a picture of that. Well, that's kind of a terrible picture. Is there not a better one in your textbook that shows where that spleen is? There really isn't, is there? Oh, well, there you go. On page 393, it does give you a little glimpse. Yeah, a little glimpse. Hey, look, there's a little spleen back behind the stomach. So thymus up here and the spleen down that bottom right corner. All right, I don't think, I forgot to look at this. I do want to go to the back of this chapter, the very end of the chapter, where we talk about how the lymph system is interacting with all the other systems. Can somebody tell me what page that is? Oh, there are some of these PowerPoints that my computer doesn't like. So I can actually pull it up for you. Thank you. On page 406. I wanted to take your attention there. We're getting pretty close. Are you comfortable as we're moving down the list that we've only got 4 systems there that we have not actually talked about in significant detail? So these should be getting easier and easier for you to understand how these systems interact together, right? So let's talk, going through these guys. And again, I apologize, there's no picture for the video. You'll have to just imagine page 406. How is the integumentary system? How is it working with the lymphatic system? Fighting infection? Okay. Right. This is, I mean, for immunity, we'll talk about this. This is our first mechanical barrier. The skin keeps stuff out, right? So that's a huge role in the immunity piece. Okay, how about the skeletal system? What are we dealing with there? How does that interact with the lymphatic system and immunity? We haven't got to this part yet. Good. What kind of cells? The lymphocytes. What kind of lymphocytes? The B lymphocytes, because B stands for bones. Oh, and T stands for thymus. So, like, again, scientists are not creative. They're very much like, hey, where is this from? Okay, it's T, it's a thymus. Okay, T lymphocyte. They don't come with like some big unicorn name. It's just like, oh yeah, T lymphocyte. Okay? Or they pick names that sound all impressive so people think you're smart. That's kind of the 2 ways I've seen they name things. Okay, let's move on. How about the muscular system? The contractions do what? They pump the lymph, right? By moving your muscles, they're moving the lymph through the body. We cool? Okay, how about next? We've got the nervous system. Stress may impair. This is an interesting thing. We'll talk a bit more about this. We hit it a bit last chapter. We were talking about stress in the endocrine system. But when you are stressing, you are more likely to be sick. Think about in your own life. When things get super busy at school and there's a lot of stuff going on, inevitably what happens? You get sick, right? Stress does increase the level of sickness because it actually will decrease some of these lymphocyte productions and make it more difficult for you to fight off these diseases. Okay, how about endocrine system? Yeah, so the stimulation, what keeps these lymphocytes being produced is the hormones. They control that level of how much is going on there. So an increase in those stress hormones like cortisol will actually depress that lymphocyte production. Let's continue on. Cardiovascular system, how does that work into it? Okay, spleens filtering the blood. What else? Sure. I mean, the whole point of the lymph system is to take the fluid where? To the blood, to the cardiovascular system, right? So they're very much working in partnership together. How about digestive system? Lymph plays a big role in the absorption of fats. We'll hit this a little bit. Your book talked about it much. These guys didn't really do much with it, the actual presentation. But yeah, absorbing fats. And by the way, are fats bad for you? No, you need fats, right? Fats have gotten a super bad name over the course of the last 30 years or so. Too much fat, sure, that's a problem. And we tend to eat way too much fat. But fats on their own, you need fats to live. Okay, moving on. How about the respiratory system? Okay, that's one of the things that helps with the movement of the lymph system is the motions from your breathing. Okay, what else? Okay, think about one of the main ways we get bad things into our body. Are you comfortable we breathe in from the outside all of these nasty things and we put them into our lungs, right? It's one of the main, we call it a threat vector. It's one of the main areas that bad things get into our bodies, right? Another one would be through our mouths. Any open area to the outside, right? And so certainly we'll want to make sure there's lots of good immune system work going on in that respiratory system. Okay, how about urinary system? Almost done. Okay, that really is what is the huge determining factor of how much fluid is in your body is your urinary system, right? Your kidneys help to regulate. And we'll talk much more about this in the future. And that system, I think, is just fascinating. How it goes through this loop of Henle and keeps absorbing and reabsorbing and pushing out and absorbing. It's this crazy, I think, incredibly impressive piece of osmotic pressure work to be able to control how much water you have in your body. And again, your urine should be what color? Should be clear, right? Should be clear. Especially us gentlemen, it's very easy to see what color you've got, right? And you have to imagine if you're going into a, there's probably way too much information, I'm sorry, but if you're going into a toilet, are you comfortable that you are taking a whole toilet full of water and then putting your urine into that? So the actual color of your urine is significantly darker than that color? Does that make sense? Think about, gentlemen, if you're using a urinal versus using a toilet, right? And again, I'm not trying to gross you out here, but it's so true. You can totally tell a difference. Oh boy, whew, I need to drink some water, right? Good. Last but not least, how about reproductive system? So special mechanisms, what do they do? Inhibit the attacking of the sperm. Does this make sense? The whole point of your immune system is your body knows what's not its own, right? It talks about that at the beginning of that section. That when you're born or before you're born, your body basically takes an inventory of all the cells. Okay, this is all Nathan. This is me. Okay. And if something else gets in, it attacks it, right? Are you comfortable that's exactly opposite of what we want to happen when you're trying to get pregnant? Right? We want that other person's cell to reach a specific place where that egg is, right? So it's actually inhibiting, no, those sperm are okay, don't attack those. The germs that came in, sure, yes, attack those, but not the sperm. Does that make sense? Cool. Any questions there? Whew. All right. Between now and when I see you the next time, I need you to do some jumping jacks and get woken up a little bit. And I apologize. I'm trying to zip through this because I got people who are going to be gone. So I'm going to spend, and I don't like to do this, but I'm going to spend their time in this next period going through some more material with you so that we can get that material in their hands so they can be comfortable before they leave. Yes, Thursday. We do, never mind. I forgot about that. Good. So tomorrow, that's what we'll spend our time doing. I apologize. I was thinking we had love to learn time, but we don't. Sorry, let me stop this.